safe house in Paris.
Why would I need a safe house in Paris?
Should things at some point go terribly wrong, it's good to have a place to go. You know, for a cup of tea.
My brothers, my sisters, the clock is ticking fast. My dream, we who live for truth, for love. The moment has come to take our rightful place.
Oh wow, that's cool.
In the world where we wizards were free. Join me or die.
The wizarding and non-wizarding
Not
world
much of a
have been
choice.
for over a century. Grindelwald wants to see that piece destroyed.
You want me to hunt him down? To kill him? Dumbledore, why can't you go?
I cannot move against Grindelwald. It has to be you.
You don't suffer from motion sickness, see?
I don't do well on boats.
You'll be fine.
You know why I
What is
admire
that
you?
gold stuff?
You do not seek power. You simply ask, is the thing right? The time's coming when you're going to have to pick a side.
No, I don't do sides.
Getting tense now.
I can do nothing.
You never met a monster you couldn't love.
Let's take him.
That's your brother?
Wow.
I think that might have been the best moment of my life.
Hey guys, I'm filming this a little bit later on because I watched the trailer earlier today and I've gone away and done some research and now I'm ready to give you my analysis and review of the entire trailer. The first thing which happens in this trailer is we see some real world magic used by Dumbledore. Now this is quite a funny thing for him to be doing because real world magic is obviously something which Muggle wizards go about doing all the time. We happen to know that Dumbledore is a fan of the Muggle world, so perhaps it's something to do with that and his love of Muggles, or perhaps it's him just being a little bit funny and quirky in his usual style. So we can see him flip out the card from his wrist, and that is actually the address of a safe house in Paris. What's quite interesting about this is he knew the address of Slughorn's safe house during Half-Blood Prince also. However, safe houses are not a common world thing for the wizarding world, because otherwise Newt Scamander would already know about these things. There are places like the Leaky Cauldron, these public places for wizards to go to, but they're not exactly secret or safe. So this leads me to the question, does Dumbledore have a number of safe houses lying about, and how many does he have? At a number of times within the past trailers, we have seen Dumbledore trying to convince Newt to go on this mission. And it seems like this time he's finally managed to convince Newt of this. Just to reassure him a little bit more, he then makes a joke about tea.
You know, for a cup of tea.
We all know, of course, that safe houses are not for tea. They are because you need a safe place to go when it is a very dangerous mission. As food for thought, if Dumbledore had all of these safe houses just lying about, why wasn't Harry able to use any of these during the Deathly Hallows? The next thing that we hear is Grindelwald saying, "My clock is ticking fast," or maybe "the clock is ticking fast." It's not very clear which of these he says, and it matters quite a bit which of these it is, because on the one hand, if he's saying "my clock is ticking fast," then that suggests that he personally is on some sort of time limit, that maybe his plans are very limited to set things which are in motion, or maybe he personally doesn't have much time, like he's dying or he's ill or something. On the other hand, if he's just saying "the clock is ticking fast," well, that's just a common phrase and it just means that things need to get done, that there isn't very much time. Basically, we need to keep moving. Personally, I think it would be more interesting if he's saying "my clock is ticking fast," and it's something to do with all of his plans. Probably one of the most interesting scenes within this whole trailer, certainly something which really stood out to me, was seeing Maledictus transform into a snake. And I actually thought, wow. Now already I have mentioned in one of my previous videos that there was a theory going about that Maledictus was Nagini. Of course, the really big news here is that it is confirmed that she is in fact Nagini. And we know this because Credence actually calls Maledictus Nagini within this trailer.
The moment has come to take our rightful...
It's unclear how Maledictus went to change her name into Nagini. However, we do know that she is with a circus, so perhaps it's some kind of stage name or something, which she then adopted later on as she became more and more snake-like. Maybe Maledictus is the stage name, since Maledictus is actually the name of the condition. Or perhaps the condition itself is named after her. We quickly cut to a scene of the carriage, and we can see these snakes popping out of it. Now my first thought when I saw these was runespore, which are snakes which effectively is a snake with 3 heads. However, it could just be normal snakes. Runespores are of course very commonly associated and used by dark wizards. And seeing them here in this situation makes me wonder whether perhaps they are part of Grindelwald's plan in order to escape from him being incarcerated. The snakes then go on to attack the driver, which of course furthers my idea that perhaps they are there in order to set Grindelwald free. There's also something really interesting which happens here, but it's really quick, so you might not have caught it. And what happens is that we get an older man, one of the guards, as the water is filling up. However, as soon as we see his face under the water, he's a younger man, and he looks a lot like Theseus. And if this is Theseus, if we go along with this idea, he's either meant to be there or he's not meant to be there. He's either one of the guards, and they are all disguised so that Grindelwald can't identify them, or he has actually taken the place of another guard and has his own agenda. Personally, I think he's got his own agenda and has replaced one of the guards, though I'm not sure why. It's really nice that within this trailer we do actually get to see Theseus a few times, and from this we get to see a little bit of his character, because he has been very vague, just an idea of a person up until this point, especially since we didn't get to see him in the first Fantastic Beasts movie. So the next thing that I want to draw your attention to is this particular piece of dialogue here.
The wizarding and non-wizarding worlds have been at peace for over a century. Grindelwald wants to see that peace destroyed.
So from my research of Grindelwald and of his philosophies, he doesn't want peace in the slightest with Muggles. He believes that the wizarding world, that all wizards are supreme over Muggles, and that they should be in charge, that they should be domineering over them. Now, this is not peace. That's a dictatorship. That is them being better than. But we're not sure who is saying this piece of dialogue, who they're talking to, what specifically they're talking about. We actually see this particular mountain scene a couple of times within the trailer, and we know that this film is going to be set in France, which suggests that this is going to either be somewhere in the Pyrenees or in the Alps. And the highest peak in France is actually Mount Blanc, which is over 4,000 meters above sea level. However, I'm not sure exactly where this mountain scene fits in within the film. So far, every scene that has been shown to us within Fantastic Beasts 2, and even what we've seen in Fantastic Beasts 1, have all been in very habitated areas. It's always been in towns, with buses, at Hogwarts, always in these massively populated areas. However, it shouldn't particularly be a surprise to get some scenes where we're seeing some great scenery, especially when you're considering that the movie is set in France. And this, of course, is a lovely callback to the Harry Potter movies, where we see tons and tons of beautiful scenery, and was something which was somewhat missing from the first Fantastic Beasts movie, although to be fair, that was set in New York, where the only real outside surroundings that they've really got are cities or Central Park, which doesn't really leave that much for the imagination. It wouldn't really be much of a Fantastic Beasts movie without the beasts. And we actually get to see the Behemoth in a number of scenes throughout this trailer. And the Behemoth is probably one of my favourite magical creatures. I just think he looks fantastic, if you'll excuse the pun. And yes, he does look quite a lot like a lion, and I am a Gryffindor, so I might be just a little bit biased about it. But hey, he looks amazing. However, what's different about this scene is that Tina Goldstein is actually there with the Behemoth. And we see a number of people who look like they're muggles all scattered around it in a great big crowd, and they're all running away in a frenzy, which definitely suggests that the muggles are seeing the Behemoth. That's gonna be one big mess for the Ministry to clean up, I'll tell you that. We also get to see the Niffler, who is adorable and making as much mischief as ever. And of course Pickett, who, well, Pickett's just really cute. I'll never forget that scene in the first Fantastic Beasts movie when he actually thinks that Newt is going to sell him. That's just so sad. And also we get to see the Kelpie, who is probably my second favourite creature after the Behemoth. And we see him doing this great big jump that looks kind of like a dolphin's jump, which really means that we get to see it in all of its glory. In some of the other trailers, we have seen Newt Scamander standing next to this particular wall with all of these rune-like glowing letters. And I do have to wonder what exactly that is, it just fascinates me so much. But this time it's a bit of a bigger scene, we're able to see a bit more area. It definitely looks like it's underground, maybe some sort of part of a sewer network or something. And it looks quite a lot like the scene where we saw Jake with the bird in one of the previous trailers. However, this time we can see Tina there, and she turns looking quite startled towards Newt Scamander as if not expecting him to be there. Next we see an Obscurus, and then we see a whole load of other Obscurial all joining it, like some kind of Obscurus army or something. So this makes me wonder if Credence is recruiting them, and whether they're like all working for him and they're all working together, or whether he is still working for Grindelwald and he's going to pass them over. We later on see him handing Maledictus over to Grindelwald, and Grindel gives this really pleased like grin, like this is exactly what he wanted to happen. But we don't know whether the Obscurials are going to end up working for Grindelwald also. Just as a side idea, just a random theory, throwing it out there, maybe Grindelwald has promised to cure her of her disease that's making her gradually turn into a snake, and that's why Credence has brought her to him. But of course we all know that Grindelwald wouldn't do that. If we take a look at this particular scene, we can see a blonde woman with her hand up to a painting of a bird, and she looks an awful lot like Queenie. We do actually know that Queenie is coming back for this movie, which is really fantastic. I particularly like Queenie as a character, and we know for a fact that she is definitely back in Fantastic Beasts 2 because we see her later on within this clip and she's actually crying, but we don't know why. We have in previous trailers already seen Dumbledore stood in front of the Mirror of Erised. However, this time we can actually see him stood facing Jamie Campbell-Bower. Now, Jamie Campbell-Bower actually played as the young Grindelwald within the Harry Potter films, so it's great that they've got this continuity going on. I especially like that he's got the contact lens in his eye, which is of course what the older Grindelwald has, so they've kept that continuity all the way round. And I like this even though I don't particularly like Jamie Campbell-Bower as an actor. We have in fact already seen this particular moment when the water is all filling up in that room, but what we haven't seen before is Tina and Newt running down this corridor, and then them running in amongst the cabinets. That bit we have seen briefly. This sense of urgency means that they are either running to something or they are running away from something. Now I'm going to put my money on running to something because this whole area looks like a kind of ministry area, somewhere official that maybe they shouldn't be. But what's weird about this is what exactly is there that they're trying to get, and what does that have to do with Grindelwald? And I'm sure that in this particular scene, Jake is going to have a wonderful time. Of course I mean that sarcastically, because we all know that portkeys are absolutely horrible experiences. But what we see here is this very strangely dressed looking man. I personally think he looks like a fisherman. and he's most likely a member of the magical world who doesn't really know how to dress like a muggle and has kind of failed. He might be somebody who is in charge of the portkey, he might be the person who enchanted it, he might be a gatekeeper or something along those lines. I was rather intrigued at this particular scene, because we can see Newt spreading a load of this gold dust everywhere. And I couldn't tell whether the gold dust was in order to reveal a beast which somehow couldn't be seen otherwise, or whether that was in some way the beast itself. That's certainly very interesting, but I was researching all day and I could not find what this creature could possibly be. So if you've got any ideas, I'd certainly like to hear them. But it could well be a brand new creature that we've never heard about, which is pretty cool. Then in this really small scene, we see a man walking through a cracked wall into what seems to be a hidden room. But we see him again later on, so we'll mention him a little bit more then. There are some fantastic pieces of dialogue within this movie, and this particular one is Dumbledore.
Do you know why I admire you, Nick? You do not seek power. You simply ask, is the thing right?
I think that this is in reference to Dumbledore regretting his younger self, because he was friends with Grindelwald when they were younger, and both of them lusted very much for power. However, they've parted ways now, and Grindelwald is obviously still wanting all of that power. However, Dumbledore doesn't want to be that person anymore. So him saying this is very much, to me, a callback to him thinking about who he used to be. And this makes me wonder why Dumbledore never tried to take the stone from Nicholas Flamel, especially since they have been friends since almost forever, and Dumbledore was a very different person as a younger man. So back to the man again, the one that walked through the crack in the wall. We see something grab Maledictus from the other side of the wall. We know this is the case because you can see the wallpaper breaking from within the wall. The next few shots are of the broken building. This is the same building from the other trailer. We see the same man again in this scene. Coincidence? I think not. Is he the one who grabbed her? Why is he relevant to the story? I have got to wonder about a mysterious character who can walk through walls in this trailer, especially when Maledictus is grabbed through a wall just moments later. We also see this war scene with all these fighter planes in the top, but I'm not sure where exactly in the story this fits, since Fantastic Beasts 2 is set too early for World War II, and we see an adult Newt Scamander, which means that this can't be a flashback. Then for a moment we see somebody knocked to the floor and either a leg or a paw or something smashing down onto the ground. In this frozen moment we get to see Hogwarts and also the Quidditch pitch over in the far left hand side. It's really great to be able to see a reference to Quidditch and to see the people on their broomsticks, because Quidditch is probably my favourite sport in the world. If I could go on a broomstick, I reckon that I would really enjoy flying. We also see Theseus say, "Let's take him," which shows a somewhat impatient nature. And it also suggests that this is the location and moment when they're all going to charge in to try and stop Grindelwald. You might remember my surprise at seeing Ministry members apparate onto Hogwarts grounds, and that was on this particular bridge, or at least it looks like the same bridge. And here we can see Tina, Newt, Jake, Theseus and the Ministry all stood together. We also see for a split moment Newt Scamander start to walk forward in what seems to be a leadership role, which is really good for him. And in this moment we get to see Dumbledore pointing his wand out, just what appears to be another small moment of his teaching. This looks like some sort of very official looking room. We can see that it curves off into the distance, which to me looks like some sort of amphitheatre, some sort of very official magical room. Perhaps it is a room within the Ministry itself. This is backed up further by the fact that we can see a number of guards posted around, and also these big bird statues. And birds usually represent wisdom, maybe freedom, also a lot of pride, being very proud creatures. So this would make a lot of sense being in a Ministry room as well. We can also see that Newt is here, so perhaps he is there to be a witness to some kind of trial or something. And the last scene that we are treated to within this trailer is Newt saying, "I think this might be the best moment of my life," as he ties up into a chair his own brother. And this strongly suggests that there's some kind of rivalry, some sort of suppression between them, that he isn't particularly fond of his brother and he's really glad to actually get one up on him this time. That's all of the analysis for this video, and in fact all of the analysis that we're going to have for the Fantastic Beasts 2 trailers, because this was the final trailer for the Crimes of Grindelwald before the movie comes out in just 1 month's time. So with that being said, I'd like to say a personal thank you to all of you who have watched my reaction trailers for the Crimes of Grindelwald. I've had over 100 views for each of them, and it's meant so much to me. In fact, one of my videos I think has a few hundred views, which is just fantastic. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet and you want to see more of my videos, please do so. Also, please support my sister channel Mangy Cat Gaming for anything game related. Don't forget to throw into the comments if you've got any of your own ideas or theories, because I'd love to hear them. Thank you for watching, and keep collecting. Like some sort of badass Marvel like some sort of magical team for good. I don't know what I'm saying here.